Sidekiq is a great Ruby gem that handles background job processing in Ruby apps. We'll install it in this chapter. We'll also install a special data store called Redis that'll be used to hold our list of background jobs. As we mentioned in the last chapter, we'll be relying on a database called Redis to store our background jobs. Redis is a different kind of database from Postgres or MySQL, where those databases have columns and rows of data. Redis is more like a giant Ruby hash object. When you want to store data in Redis, you simply pass the data as a string to Redis and assign it a unique key. When you want to get the data back out, you just ask for it by the key. Think of it like a coat check in a museum. You give the coat check attendant your items, whatever they are, and they give you a unique number. When you bring that number back, you get your items back. That's what happens when you store a value like a string, number, or a list with Redis. Before setting Redis up on your background servers, let's get it working on your local machine. Install and start the Redis server from your console like this. Brew install Redis. And now follow the instructions there and run brew services start Redis. Next, let's add the Sidekiq gem. And run bundler to install the gem. For Sidekiq to work with Rails Jobs API, we need to tell Rails to use Sidekiq as the queue adapter. You do that in config applicaiton.rb. Next, we need to start the Sidekiq server. Now, in order to pick up the changes to our config and use Sidekiq, let's restart our Rails server. Now, if we go and reload our contact page and submit a new message, you can see here in our server logs now that our post message was received and an active job, contact job, was enqueued. And it says to Sidekiq now. And then it rendered the contact page. Notice that there's nothing in here now rendering our background job. This process is just completely free of that work at the moment. Go back to our Sidekiq server, however, we can see that the job was processed by Sidekiq. So you can see that it was pretty easy to tell Rails how to start using Sidekiq to enqueue the jobs. We just added the Sidekiq gem, and then with one line in a config file, told Rails to use it. Sidekiq isn't the only background job processor you can use with Ruby. There are other popular libraries that do the same or very similar thing, such as rescue and delayed job. Since Rails has its own classes and patterns for defining background jobs, we should be able to change the underlying infrastructure from, say, Sidekiq to delayed job without having to change too much about the way we've written our background jobs in our Rails app. In other words, to switch to delayed job, we'd have to change the steps in this chapter, but we wouldn't have to change anything that we did in the last chapter. We've just installed Redis and Sidekiq. In the next chapters, we'll look at getting our email jobs running on our AWS servers.